I was going to sort of start by asking, is Dracula a character that you've always been quite fond of, or was this almost your opening into his world?
I wouldn't say I was fond of him. I was very aware of the character. I think it's a fantastic role for any actor, and we've seen him portrayed for many decades with some of the best actors of our generations and generations before us. So I'm very aware of it, and my favourite Dracula is the Francis Ford Coppola version with the wonderful Gary Oldman portraying him as this very ancient creature. But no, that's all I know or knew of him when I took the role.
And does that bring, obviously you just mentioned a couple of the sort of big performances from actors who have played him. Does that bring about a sense of pressure to you, knowing that you're sort of following in the footsteps of others
Not
before
pressure, because I'm not really retelling that story that they were telling. I'm telling the origin story. So I'm playing Vlad Tepes, who was actually a historical, real person that inspired the Dracula character 400 years later when Bram Stoker wrote about it. But so no, I didn't feel a pressure. I felt was quite honoured that I was picking up the baton from the likes of people like Christopher Lee and Gary Oldman, but I'm telling a different story. It's the untold origin story. It's just a very different story.
So when you were sort of first approached, was there any hesitations when you heard it was going to be about vampires, or did you have to take any convincing?
Well, I had to read the script and realise that it was a story about something that was. I didn't know that much about Vlad Tepes or Vlad the Impaler and how he was connected to the Dracula character. But it was a refreshing new take on the origins of such a famous literary vampire. So no pressure, just more privilege and honour.
I read that you were off shooting when this sort of the audition process came about, and you did it on Skype. Is that right?
I just spoke to Gary on Skype. Yeah, I had meetings in LA about it. I was in London. I spoke to him from my home in London. We had lots of Skype meetings and lots of meetings in face-to-face as well. You know, it's the way it is when you're travelling as an actor.
Because sort of Hollywood's sort of changing sort of rapidly, and the world's becoming a much smaller place. That must be so beneficial to actors now these days, where you can audition from anywhere, sort of, so to speak.
Yeah, well, things can move much faster as well because of things like Skype and it does. It helps. It helps people, you can really get a sense of somebody even on Skype nowadays. You can converse and talk for hours, which is what me and Gary did.
And I was going back to Vlad, I mean, we need to get a sense of his dark side. But obviously, what to counteract there's a real sort of charm, and we get to see the sort of family man as well. Was that quite a tough balance for you to strike, to kind of have both of those aspects to his demeanour?
I wouldn't say it was tough. I say it was a challenge, but it was a really exciting challenge because that's why I think the script sort of jumped out at me in the first place, was because I was telling the story of the human as well as the vampire and his transition and about his plight and his journey and the fact that he was a father and a husband and a leader and a king and a prince and a warrior and all these things. They're very human qualities that he could express, and it makes the character much more appealing and relatable to an audience.
And was one of the sort of aspects of his personality that you could relate to on a human level was the kind of addiction side to it? Because, I mean, obviously it's all quite supernatural, and yet he's struggling with what is effectively addiction, I guess.
It is. It's an addiction. That's how I've been describing it to people, is that, it is. He's like he's fighting this need to drink blood. And he fights it quite successfully for a few days there, but the power is overtaking him. But yeah, it is like an addiction, and he's sort of forcing himself into the cold turkey sort of scenario.
Yeah. Of course, that the third and final Hobbit movie is sort of coming sort of fast upon us. I was just wondering, it must be quite exciting for you to know that it's getting to a point where a lot of people have seen it and you can finally talk about it, because you must have been keeping quite a lot bottled up for the past year or so.
Yeah, we're not really allowed to talk about the film that's coming up. We can talk about the film that's gone, but it's very, we're sort of told to stay stum until it comes out, or when we start doing the press for it. Yeah. But it's nice. Yeah, you're right. It's the final chapter, so we'll be able to tell the full story then.
Yeah, it must be quite sad that it is sort of. Well, there's still a lot more Hobbit sort of life left. I suppose you've got the press to do and all the premieres and stuff, but sort of coming to an end, that must be sort of quite sad.
Yeah, prospect. Well, it's bittersweet. It's nice as an accomplishment for everybody involved, but especially Peter Jackson, who's been involved in that Middle-earth world for a very long time. For him, it's probably a huge moment, a big book that he's going to finish and close. And but we all feel very lucky to have been part of that journey. And the final installment is going to be amazing.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
worries.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.
See ya.